Hi, I'm Chris. I like to paint things, and today I'm in the mood to do some kit bashing. Now I just gotta figure out where I put all of my kit bashing stuff. Perfect. This is a box of Frostgrave cultists by Northstar Military Figures. They make a bunch of Frostgrave and Stargrave models. They're not official in the sense that like you can use any models for Frostgrave, but they're made to be perfect fits. These kits are great because you can buy like single sprues on eBay if you want to be really thrifty, but the boxes come with 4 identical kits, and they kind of fit very, very nicely together. They're all on the same scale, they all assemble the same way, so today we're going to grab 2 kits and just do some awesome kit bashing. I'm going to show you the power of these kits. We have a set of scavengers and a set of gnolls, so we're going to mix sci-fi and fantasy elements and build something really cool. Moxie knows. I've used these kits a couple of times already. This is kind of the generic cultist kit if you build them all as undead. They come with several ways to build them. So these are my just 5 undead that I built. And then I mixed the regular cultist heads with some shotguns and weapons. So now I have like modern day cultists or even future cultists. I don't know. I love these guys. And then I made some crazy kit bashes for a game and lore that I'm kind of designing. That's a background thing, and this is videos, not a primer for, but it's kind of the first steps in that direction. These kits are so nice because you can mix them with like whatever you want. I even tried to build like a Lady Doom guy here, but I don't think Moxie likes it too much. I'm Chris, I like to paint things, and come with me today while I mix sci-fi and fantasy kits and build some awesome kit bashes. Kit bashing is super easy. You only need a couple of tools and the same tools you need to build models with. Some nice nippers and a sharp blade. Make sure you get like a fresh blade because we're gonna have to do a little bit of tweaking to these kits to make them look really nice. None of this is necessary. The thin cement melts the plastic together and is honestly makes them pretty functional, but I'm gonna do a little bit of extra repair to make them not look professional because gosh, I'm no professional. But I'm gonna do a little extra work to make them look nice. These are some quar, don't worry about those. So like I said, our focus is going to be 2 kits. One is the Gnoll sprue from Frostgrave, and we're going to use them as the body. So I think we're going to make big dog men with guns, I think is kind of the vibe. So I'm going to just start with a body, pretty basic. And choose one of the several heads. I definitely want these guys to be inhabiting some sort of blasted desert, so we're going to go with the ones with face coverings. Then we have to clean up the sprues. You've built models before. I don't even know why I bothered including all this footage, but it's important if this is like the first time you've ever seen kit bashing. I want these to look really nice, so I'm just showing this is how you clean models up. Plastic glue cements everything together. And we have a little dog man. Look at that little dog man. He's got an eye patch. Now the kit comes with knives and guns, but we're going to use the Stargrave scavenger sprue. Again, I bought a single sprue off of eBay for like $8 or whatever plus shipping. And we're just gonna give him an assault rifle. I mean, pretty easy. The arms on these are great because all of the fantasy arms have the same, and all of the sci-fi have kind of the same style. The only problem with that is they all have this little, doohickey, like a arm sensor. I don't know. So I'm going to cut it off because I don't think it fits the vibe of, like scavenging dogs in the wasteland. And then always unnecessary, but I've been leaning into it lately, is just drilling gun barrels. And the reason it's unnecessary, you'll see one of the 2 gun barrels in this video is off center. That one's pretty good though. It's pretty straightforward from here. I mean, you attach arms to where arms go, and they're about the same size across all of the kits. So it always, like I said, it's very nice and versatile. I was very happy to find that the sci-fi and fantasy kits work really well. Next, we need to add a couple of details. I'm going to add this little skull that I think he uses as a water flask. I think that's the vibes, because that's pretty cool vibes. If not, it's just some nice little detail on the back. I'm going to clean up the model a little bit using the plastic glue to melt some of these like flashings. This specific sprue I got, I don't think was cast the best, but maybe that's why they get them so cheap. I don't know. 1 Wolfman done. Now I lost a little bit of the footage for the next Wolfman, Dogman thing, but This one, I needed a left arm to hold the gun, and there were no left arms holding pistols in this kit. Big oversight, guys. Someone needs to make me some left arms holding guns. So I had to like chop a gun off and put it in a left hand so that I could have him hold a little melee weapon. I don't love the pose I did for this guy, but I think he's the leader. He's supposed to just stand there and look angry, but he's not like the one who's gonna snipe you out or shoot you. And then all of these sets come with a lot of backpacks. My only issue with these kits and their backpacks is they kind of stick out really silly. I put in a couple extra cuts to make sure the plastic glue held pretty well, but I just feel like they don't sit perfectly flush. But they do add a little bit of sci-fi to an otherwise less than sci-fi model. Now we need a heavy machine gunner. This is kind of the same process as before, but I'm using a bigger gun. I went with the scavenger kit because it went really nicely with the ragtag like aesthetic of these dog people. I'm gonna come up with a name for them and some background at some point. But I really, really like this heavy machine gun with the drum magazine. And then I gave this guy like a hooded helmet so that, you know, the debris and the kickback from the gun doesn't get in his face and his eyes. And then some grenades for good measure. The easiest way to make fantasy look sci-fi is throwing some grenades and some, you know, doohickeys. So I knew that this team needed like something interesting so it wasn't just 3 dudes on foot with guns. And I figured, what do outriders in the desert need? They need a bike. Or a spider. I know, I couldn't decide. I wanted someone riding something. So I was kind of stuck between Space Marine bike and spider. 2 of these Gnolls come with the legs and torso separate for some reason. I don't really know why, but it's kind of nice because it means I can add a rider. So I opted for the Space Marine bike at first, thinking this was going to be pretty easy after like chopping the base up. But I kind of thought it was going to be an insane amount of work to repose these legs. I thought about like, maybe I'll just put a bunch of crap and bulk out the legs or make them stand on the bike, and all those just honestly felt kind of silly. So I decided, nah, we're going to do the spider. Bike also, it was just a little big. I don't know, the scale wasn't great. I thought dude riding spider, as cool as desert dude on bike. So I built him off camera. I gave him a little spear so he could, you know, direct the spider. And I gave him a little hand to be like holding the reins. This is a really old, not old, I just had it in my collection a while. It's one of them WizKids, like, baby's first miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons spiders that I got when I was learning to paint. As you can tell, I don't think he's painted very well, but I don't think I knew how to paint anything back then. And then I thought, well, he needs some reins to hold the spider, so a couple of chains is a super easy way to make some reins. And now we're doing rhymes all the times because I'm losing my minds. Anyway, I don't know if a spider has a neck, per se, that one would pull by the reins, but I thought it was kind of a cool vibe. I mean, I love using, you know, little chains and in builds to add details to the kitbash. If you look at any of my custom models and builds, most of them have some sort of chain. This was probably the most intricate I did with the little holder and everything, and I made it like 2 rings too short, but it looks fine. Molly would really appreciate it if you could consider subscribing. I would too, but mostly the cat. Yeah. Okay. She doesn't want to be bothered. Just subscribe or like the video. Sorry, Molly. So before this band of snow set in, I took the models outside to prime. Here's a sneak peek at a project that's going to be the next video. It's going to be the Christmas video. I just gave everything a quick black primer. I usually do some Zenithal priming, but I'm going for Grim Dark with these guys, so I don't think I'm, you know, I didn't do the gray. I think it's way better to leave them black and do some dry brushing. Now, I'm not going to super go over the process here. You can see what I'm doing on screen. My very first video on YouTube, at least doing miniature painting, was essentially a grimdark style. Lots of dry brushing of browns and layering up. This is literally just an upgraded style and, you know, just improved, and I've learned a lot since then. You're literally just taking a bunch of browns and layering them up into brighter and brighter highlights, dry brushing less and less and less. If you watch the video, you'll see the different steps that I'm doing and how they compare. So for example, this is what that first really, really dark dry brush looks like compared to the black. Makes it at least look dusty, and it kind of gives you a base of what I'm going to build up from. So I'm going to do a couple comparisons over time as I really lighten up these dry brushes. But I wanted to take this chance to talk about why I'm building these guys. Because one, it's a proof of concept. I really wanted to make sure that I could kitbash these two, types of kits and show off how easy that is to do. Two, I've been really inspired by a lot of other YouTubers, and I think I want to get into some world building. Now, if you don't care about world building, that's okay. I'm going to just build really cool projects along the way. But I'm kind of thinking every other one is going to be involved in some sort of world. I've had ideas for games and worlds for years and years and years, and everyone does it. I think it's one of the oldest human traditions. It's like storytelling and coming up with things, right? That's just mythology. So I'm going to invent my own. How's that sound? I've had an idea for a long time that kind of revolves around a destroyed city. We're mixing, I don't know. The vibes are, if you ever played the video game Rage. Now imagine Rage and Rage 2. They're very desert punk. There's a lot of neon lights, but it's not like cyberpunk in a dark, gloomy city. It's neon lights outside and crazy, colorful characters and a blasted desert. A lot of tube TVs, I think, is a vibe. That's kind of fun. Originally I was going to go with like a city, but I was like, it's just cyberpunk. So I'm working on an idea like that. Very punk aesthetic, and not in the cyberpunk way where it's like, I mean literal punks. I want like dudes with mohawks and liberty spikes fighting for, guerrilla warfare freedoms, and then there needs to be some sort of horror element. So I've always had this idea of mixing like a punk aesthetic with like a Lovecraft horror. So the general idea is that there's some sort of spire cracked through the world and unleashed creatures like some sort of old ones, that sort of thing. Now, the old ones have either driven people insane or they have created mutants. And that's what these are. These are just called hounds. They're just some dudes who mixed with dog DNA. I'm not sure. They need better lore than that. They're essentially desert raiders who, they're not thinking like people anymore. They're a little more animalistic, but I wouldn't say they have no, human thought. This is me spitballing, if you couldn't tell. So they're essentially just spire mutants is what I'd call them, and spire mutants come in many forms. They might be mixed with animals, they might be mixed with plant life. This is kind of the part of the game that lets you get crazy with your kit bashes. Most of the things in the game are either humans, or they're not aliens, but they need to be some sort of dark creature. But then you also have your spire mutants, and your spire mutants have been corrupted by those spires that lifted out of the ground. So that's kind of the basic idea. A spire lifted out of the ground, cut off a very large desert island or desert city, literally separated it from the mainland continent, and that area has been abandoned by the government and left to rot. So roving bangs of anti-government sentiments have come up, they've captured government weaponry, and they've all gone to war with each other because, they need turf and resources. Spire mutants are no different. Now, I went with a very Blanchitsu grimdark palette, lots of reds and browns and ochres, and I was very, very pleased with how these came out. The aesthetic of the game is definitely not that, because that's the aesthetic of a lot of games right now, but I thought these guys were perfect for that. Again, I'll throw up a card for my original grimdark cultist painting. These guys are just an improved version of that. And then, as all of my models, and especially everything in this series, I'm going to be using my version of marine juice, which is a mix of 3 washes, and lather these bad boys up. Or good boys, actually, if they're dogs. It's important to go heavy with this wash and then pull it away. But essentially, marine juice is grimdark in a bottle. And after that marine juice dried, we're left with a very nice looking model. And kind of the beauty of painting this way, you could totally leave it like this. You have a very grim, dark, cool little dude and a nice style, and you could leave them like this. There's no reason to go further. But if you know me and you've been around this channel, you know how much I like edge highlighting and layering. So guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna do some edge highlighting and layering. Now the last thing I want to work on is a sort of unified basing scheme using these bases that I got off Amazon real cheap. I know they're all uniform. The idea of this is that if I ever get around to making a game and rules, all the models will be on unified bases, and I can do the thing that I used to love in old, well, I'm sure they're in current ones, but old like GW rulebooks, that sort of thing, where you have a bunch of cool, like the back half is the colored section with all the pictures and the paint jobs, that sort of thing. This is no different than a lot of other people's basing methods. You literally just mix, some wood glue with a bit of baking soda and some paint. Sometimes, I'll add in a little bit of fine sand into the mix. Not a bunch, just like a little to add some different textures, and then a little bit of water to soften it all up. Now, normally this is a really easy process, and I normally don't even show it much, but the wood glue just turned into these horrible snake. It literally solidified. I don't know if the baking soda did something, but it didn't even let me mix it. It turned into this solid lump. So I opted to go back to regular Elmer's glue, which I'd always heard wood glue was the move, but I don't know. I whipped up some extra bases so that I'd have them for some existing miniatures and wanted to come up with a scheme. So first we started off with Territorial Beige, which is just a craft paint, because why spend lots of money on bases when you'll never be able to tell that I used nice paints or cheap paints for this. Paints like this are nice too, where if you get a little bit on the models, you could just water it down, and then when it dries, it's gonna look like the bottom of the spider is dusty anyway, which is kind of what we want. And then I have been trying to get this effect to work for a long time, so let's try it again. That's paint drying in real time. I think it looks cool. It might just look ridiculous, but I've loved the idea of making you watch paint dry. If there's nothing else you get from my channel, it's that you and I together watch paint dry. So then basing's pretty easy. You just do a dry brush and then some sort of wash to unify everything. And then when that dries, you just do another dry brush, and then you get a couple of nice layers of color. What else can you say? It looks like dirt. Then I had to liberate these guys from their bases, which was not easy. I don't plan on doing any more of these models for that reason. But man, they look pretty good. Last, to tie them into the bases, I took some, I don't even know what color, just another dusty brown, and I dry brushed the lower halves of them. One, it adds some nice dry brush highlights. Two, it tied them back into the base and made everything look really dusty. Gave them the ceremonial rimming of the base, and then, in the words of Boyle Hobby Time, I called it good. Well, if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I'm Chris. I like to paint things. Like I said, every other video I think is going to kind of involve this world that I want to build, whether that's kit bashing, or I think next I'm going to build some terrain out of junk, like some desert terrain, because those videos are always fun, and I got a lot of junk that I really need to get rid of. So maybe I'm going to build some terrain. I don't know. We'll find out. I have a Christmas video coming at the end of the month, so stick around for that. It's going to be a good time. We're going to build some evil, naughty Warhammer elves. Like, comment, subscribe, do all of those fun things. If I don't talk to you, which I probably won't because this is the internet and we're strangers, have a good one.